Vladimir Putin has gotten winning elections down to a science. Over decades in power, he's figured out how to control public opinion, control the polls, and get rid of his opposition. He wants to make sure that he can say that he's Russia's chosen leader. The government want to build up turnout and make sure as many of the people who they can get to support Vladimir Putin will get to the polls. You have 3 days that you can go to the polls. If you can't make it, poll takers will actually come to your house and will take your vote for you. The Russian government has also expanded electronic voting. What we've even seen is that those in positions of authority at all kinds of government institutions will actually pressure the people who work for them to go and vote. And it's expected that they'll vote for Vladimir Putin as well. When that doesn't work, we've seen the government engage in mass fraud. The most straightforward way is coming in with rolls of ballots pre-signed for Vladimir Putin. A second way is getting people who vote at one polling station and start to bus them from station to station to vote 4 times, 5 times, or even more.
Простите, объясните, пожалуйста, почему вы людей подвозите к участку?
Even if they're caught, and they have been in the past, that hasn't really come with any consequences. Anybody who tries to hold a protest in Russia knows it's extremely dangerous, it's extremely difficult, and the consequences for protest leaders can be quite severe. Most of those figures who spoke out openly against him, people like Boris Nemtsov, Alexei Navalny, have either died, gone to jail, or been exiled. The government creates the field around Vladimir Putin. They get rid of the opposition candidates that say things that are awkward for the government, and they leave those in that are useful to Vladimir Putin so that voters can look at them and see that the president is much stronger. The Russian government also tries to make sure that Putin remains the most popular politician in the country through control of state television, in films, in all kinds of media distributed throughout the country. The war in Ukraine has actually strengthened Putin's position. It's made many Russians feel a wave of patriotism. They need to protect themselves. They need to protect the government. It creates a kind of Fortress Russia attitude. Vladimir Putin has made it so that he can run for president as many times as he wants to. After 2 terms as president in 2000 to 2008, Putin became prime minister for 4 years. Then he was able to come back in 2012, run again, and become president twice more. And finally, when it looked like Putin couldn't run for president again, he decided to change the constitution. He reset his term limits, and now he can run twice more. He could be in power for longer even than Joseph Stalin. At which point the question is, will Putin decide to run again? If we know that Putin is going to win, why even bother holding elections? When Putin thinks about how the history books will be written, he doesn't see himself as a dictator. Vladimir Putin sees himself as the popular leader of the country united behind, who has led Russia from a very difficult path to greater prosperity, and now to an idea that in the future, Russia can play an even bigger role on the world stage. And if there's ever questions about his rule, he can always go back and say, well, look at the election results. You voted for me.